women from Colorado are in prison after doing something unimaginable. Megan Hess and Shirley Koch ran the Sunset Mesa Funeral Home. They were also body brokers. Body brokers can legally harvest human remains donated by people or their families, often, quote, for science. They can sell them to training programs for students to use as practice for scientific research or display, or for medical companies for certain procedures. But Hess and Koch didn't discuss nor obtain authorization for the bodies. They pleaded guilty to stealing and selling remains for hundreds of victims.
Our 9 News legal analyst Whitney Traylor is here now. This story is just unbelievable. And the frustrating part for these families is there's just not a lot of regulations around it.
Right. That's a major issue, and there hasn't been regulation really around the state until 2020. There was a law that Governor Polis signed about handling deceased bodies and things like that. But what happened here was this was between 2010 and 2018, and this was hundreds of bodies. This case was it just disturbed my whole spirit because the people didn't know, and they were, as Jordan said in the lead-in, they were harvesting both full bodies and then parts of bodies, and then they were giving people cremations that weren't theirs. Some of it was powdered cement. I mean, this is just really outrageous. And so the law was passed in the Colorado law was passed in 2020, and what I can glean from that is that because it was passed afterwards, they weren't actually charged with these Colorado laws. What they actually pled to was mail fraud. And so one of them got 20 years and the other got 15 years and this was hundreds of bodies. So this was just outrageous.
So can they be sued civilly, and what kind of judgment could they be looking at?
They will be sued civilly. In fact, I think the lawsuit has already started. So Berg Simpson, I saw, they had a similar case to this in Arizona, and they got a $58 million judgment. Here, I know that firm particularly is representing at least 70 plaintiffs. So there will be, this is probably intentional infliction of emotional distress, breach of contract, a number of other civil claims. But the question is going to be, will they be able to collect? Is there any money at the end of the day? But there could be insurance, and I hope they do pursue it, because even if they get the judgment and may not be able to collect on it, that would be some level of retribution or justice, if you will.
I remember one of the family members said, I feel like my deceased husband was murdered. And you get what she's saying from that, right? And the fact that they were given remains that weren't even their remains. I mean, the whole thing is just upsetting.
It's super upsetting, and this really speaks to the need for, everybody says there's too much government regulation, the government's in our business, but this really encapsulates why we have to have government regulation. These people are running a funeral home. The people don't know they're body brokers on the side. Right. And they're doing this, and it's really not until the government steps in and says, okay, now we have to have a law doing this. It's like we do the wrong thing, right? You know, George Floyd, now we have police accountability. Yes. 2008 with the mortgage situation, now we have all these mortgage regulations. So now in 2020, at least in Colorado, we have this, how to handle these cremations.
And we have just a few seconds left, but I think it's important for us to ask, because this is often unsuspecting situations. What legalities are in place? What can people do should they suspect foul play?
Well, oh gosh, and this is the worst time in their life, going through a grievance. So really they can go to the Department of Regulatory Agencies, DORA. They can file a complaint and have them look into it. Here the FBI actually got involved and ended up testing the remains. So because they're not required to provide a cremation permit, which kind of says the chain of custody, or the death certificate. So they can ask for those things. Let me get a cremation permit, let me get a death certificate. And then of course, which is still just as devastating, to say, let me have my actual remains of my loved one tested, because you can, because in some cases there was an infant and there was an adult body in the infant remains. I mean, just horrible.
Really disgusting details.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, Whitney.
Thanks.